Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I got asked a question in the Q&As this week, and I thought I would expound on that question here. And it was, you seem to agree with the stance that having a 200 overhead press, a 300 bench, 400 squat, and a 500 deadlift are a good indicator of overall strength base. Why is that? And yeah, I want to clarify that here. And what I want to state up front, when we say something like that, that's a general guideline to determine if you have built an overall base in your body. And those are a general guideline for a healthy young man to reach in a lifetime of lifting, meaning you're probably going to have to train somewhere between 3 and 5 years consistently, have finished out all of your noob gains and gone on to some sort of intermediate, possibly advanced training to reach those goals. And they're a proxy for overall size, strength, and balance development. They're not something that every person is going to reach. Obviously, some people who say, I don't want to reach anywhere near my maximum muscular potential, okay, that's fine. Or a guy who says, look, I'm not interested in training and making progress for 5 years straight, that's also okay. And not everyone is going to have the frame to support that. What I mean is that not every person on earth is going to be capable of doing that. Now, some people, it's only because they don't train correctly, but we'll get to that in a minute. Some people are not going to be able to reach that, though, to just overall frame. In other words, if you're 5'2" or 5'4", reaching those goals could take a lot more work, and they may not be realistically obtainable. And it's because when we make a statement like that, we're talking about the average Western male. The average Western male, and by that the average person is, you know, somewhere in the range of around 5'8", and that's going to vary a lot. And I'm not interested in arguing with people in third world countries or different ethnicities. I'm talking about my general audience. Most of my audience lives in the United States. The vast majority of the remainder is going to be in Canada, the UK, Australia, and maybe 5% of all of my audience lives anywhere but those countries. So again, if you're not in that demographic, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. We're talking about Western males in first world countries of average structure size. So obviously some people are going to reach these far easier than others. There's going to be people who are 6'5" who destroy these numbers in their first 9 or 10 months in the gym, right? And that's understood. Whereas in some guy who's 5'2" may never achieve this even on drugs. So these are proxies for overall strength. They're proxies for overall strength. And strength is a product of a combination of muscle size and neuromuscular efficiency. And the reason we would use strength like this as a determination is because these 4 exercises combined pretty much represent most of the muscles in the body. And they're all big movements, they're all popular movements, and they give us, again, a good proxy for full body strength, leg strength, pressing strength. And these are numbers that are, again, reasonable to reach as a lifetime goal. And I think that's kind of the point, is that a person could look at these numbers and say, okay, I've been training 3 years and I'm nowhere near these. What am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? Because here's the thing, guys. Size and strength are very, very heavily correlated. So a guy who trains purely for hypertrophy, should be able to plug these into a calculator and say, yeah, but you know, my 8 rep max should be about 70 to 75% of my 1 rep max. So in other words, I should be able to do a strict standing overhead press with 150 for 8, even if I don't do under 8 reps, because I choose to partake in purely this mythical hypertrophy range. Well, if you've developed maximum hypertrophy, you damn well better be able to overhead press 150 pounds for 8 reps, which again is going to be a rough equivalent. Same thing, your bench press probably needs to be 70-75% of that also. So again, your 300 pounds, you know, you better be benching 245, 230, something in that range for 8 reps. How about your squat? Well, you should be able to squat 300 for 8 reps. If you have developed size in all of these muscles, but you haven't trained yourself to peak and hit 1 rep maxes, you should at least have the strength potential which means that your rep work is going to be strong. In other words, a person who trains exclusively 8 to 10 reps or 8 to 12 reps should have a respectable 8 rep max, because size and strength and workload are correlated. A guy who has a lot of muscle is capable of generating more workload in one set. In other words, a guy with really massive quads and glutes should actually have a pretty respectable 8 rep or 10 rep max on his squat, unless he's got a weakness in his physique. Same thing on his deadlift as far as his back. Right? If you've got a big hamstrings, glutes, lats, traps, erectors, core, you probably should be able to pull 385, 400 pounds for 8 reps, even if you've done only hypertrophy training. And that's going to put you in that ballpark of hitting 500. If you were to spend 6 weeks working on doing really low reps, a person who could do that could probably hit a 500 1 rep max without gaining any more size. And that's the point with these. These are a proxy. This is your 1 rep max potential if you train for 1 rep maxes. And so a guy who has overall muscular development and doesn't have any weak links should be able to hit these. And so that's the point. We use big exercises to find your weak links. You could sit around and build a bunch of hypertrophy on a bunch of machines and isolation movements, but until you get under a big barbell movement, you don't know what muscles have been neglected. And I think that's a take-home message also, is that your inability to reach at least the equivalents on some of these big lifts should tell you a lot about where your musculature is lagging. In other words, if you can hit these numbers on the squat but not the deadlift, it might be time to say, okay, are my hamstrings a weakness? Are my lats a weakness? Because my squat and my deadlift are so far apart as far as the strength goes. I've probably reached close to my drug-free potential in my quads, in my core, and my glutes, but maybe my hamstrings and lats are stopping me here. Same thing, you could go look at your standing press and your bench press, because a lot of guys train a lot of bench, so you probably have the pectoral mass at a certain point to start approaching these. And you've got enough pec, you've got enough tricep to hit 240 for 8, so you're good for a 300 bench. But your overhead press is lagging way behind. Maybe it's a core weakness. Maybe it's just your delts. Maybe your delts and your traps are the weakness, because they're going to be a little more involved in the standing press than they are in the bench press. And again, this is a good proxy to tell you, if I can reach these strength goals, I'm all around strong and I'm all around developed. Probably the only muscle that doesn't get assessed in these 4 lifts is going to be the biceps. And here's the thing, most of you guys who are chasing overall gains in jactitude probably doing a bunch of curls and chin-ups anyways. You probably are doing a bunch of curls no matter what I say. So I don't think we necessarily need a proxy for that in terms of overall development. Of course, you could always come up with some standard for a weighted chin-up if you really cared, or for a strict curl. I don't know, you could do that. But that's probably the least of our concerns for overall development, because all the major muscles and how well they are balanced with everything else, how strong are your abdominals, your spinal erectors, your obliques, because 3 of these exercises are standing. Again, this gives us a good ballpark of how overall balanced is your musculature, how big, how strong you are, how effective has your training been. And that's the point we get to, because a lot of guys get a lot of size off of drugs, don't they? That drugs doesn't always guarantee full strength development. And guys who are drug free, 9 out of 10 times, the bigger guy is the stronger guy all around. And so again, I'm not saying these numbers are set hard in stone. I'm not saying that you're weak or you're a pussy if you can't hit them. But I think most of us agree, anyone who's been in the gym more than a decade and seen guys, generally speaking, a natty guy who can hit these numbers is pretty good size. These are respectable numbers, and I think if a person can reach these numbers, most people are going to agree they're all-around strong guy who can press 200, bench 300, squat 400, deadlift 500. We could argue all day long, is that with a belt, is that without a belt? I don't know, I don't care. As long as you're not using knee wraps to help. Is that a touch-and-go bench or a pause bench? I don't know. Hell, it could be a touch-and-go. I mean, a 300 pause bench is better than a 300 touch-and-go, but a 300 touch-and-go is pretty respectable. No one at a gym is going to call that dude weak. Anyone who can hit these 4 numbers in any variation of them is probably going to be in the top 1% of guys in terms of strength in a commercial gym. And he's probably, if he's doing it drug-free, he's probably going to be about the biggest, if not one of the biggest drug-free guys at his gym also. And again, it just kind of tells you where you're at. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.